90s, Nickelodeon had developed a careful trend of ensuring a show was popular before selling merchandise from it, waiting up to a year to develop it into a full brand. But with shows like Rugrats, SpongeBob, and Dora the Explorer becoming huge sellers in the world of product licensing, Nickelodeon was ready to flip its own strategy on its head and do something it had never done before, creating a brand and merchandise without a TV show. So today we'll be diving into the world of everGirl, Nickelodeon's attempt at making a lifestyle brand for tweens.
Ever dreams, ever true, ever cool, ever you, ever power, ever proud, just say it ever loud.
Before we get in too deep, let's get a lay of the land. I would argue that the 2000s were the peak of tweendom. A tween is a marketing term used to describe children ages 8 to about 12. The 8 to 12 age range is actually a specific developmental age, with researchers highlighting that they've seen youth at this time experience a fascinating interplay of wanting to grow up teen culture and wanting the security of childhood play. I personally pretty much grew up at the perfect time to be a tween, and I did personally feel that I was a tween when I was about 10, 11, 12 years old. Brands like Limited 2 and Claire's were thriving, plaid shorts were in, and I was spending as much time as I possibly could online. And in the 2000s, this group had big spending power, with a New York Post article citing that they spent over $10 billion per year and influenced up to $150 billion in family spending. So with tweens taking over, Nickelodeon was ready to try its hand at selling to this frankly huge market.
Ever dreams, ever true, ever cool, ever you, ever power, ever proud, just say it ever loud.
everGirl was first trademarked by Viacom, Nickelodeon's parent company, in 2000. While I believe the original trademark was for paper products such as books, a number of additional categories would be added over the 3 years of its development, such as clothing, electronics, food, and more. While little information is publicly available about the creation of everGirl, Angela Santamiro and Sam Freeman are referenced as being creators of the brand on various publications. Now, even if you don't recognize those names, you probably will recognize some of their other works. Angela is one of the co-creators of Blue's Clues, and Sam helped develop a lot of the merchandise for Blue's Clues as the VP of Brand and Property Development at Nickelodeon. The two women would have a vast amount of experience together and not only creating content for a child audience, but also merchandising that content, and would both go on to have vastly successful careers in their fields. However, everGirl is almost never mentioned by themselves or any articles that reference them. Weird. The first published mention I can find of everGirl is from a New York Times article from January 2003, where they report that in 2004, the company, Nickelodeon, will introduce everGirl, a website featuring stories about 4 girls, and will depart from its practice of waiting a year until there's a consumer demand for products and market a line of apparel and books based on the everGirl webisodes. Then it would pretty well be a year until the brand was mentioned again, with a report by Chief Marketing covering everGirl in December, noting that everGirl is supported by 20 licensees with products ranging from games, cosmetics, school supplies, and home decorating accessories rolling out for holiday 2004. Nickelodeon was really preparing for the brand to be a home run for the holiday season, setting the stage by releasing the first and basically biggest part of the brand, its website.
Ever dreams, ever true, ever cool, ever you, ever power, ever proud, just say it ever loud.
Possibly the most remembered and largest part of everGirl was the website. The everGirl website launched on January 12, 2004, with most online commentary I've seen consisting of really positive memories about the contents of the website, which according to an article by Kidscreen consisted of the following. The site is designed to introduce the property's 4 strong-minded characters: Joy, the fashionista; Hope, the brainy student; Sky, the athlete; and Star, the musician. A series of webtoons will outline the girls' backgrounds and chronicle their efforts to fulfill their dreams at everView Girls' School. Tweens can play games and participate in various self-discovery activities like poetry and diary writing, art projects and music composition, as well as filling out the Everscope interactive survey to determine which everGirl personality best matches their own. And this website had a lot of success, with it logging more than 1 million visits within the first month of it being online. And this website was a pretty strategic move for the brand. In that same Kidscreen article, they reference a study done by AOL and Digital Marketing Solutions, which showed that 20% of tween girls went online every day, which is so weird. That's obviously like in 2004. Now it's probably at like 100%. Like, tweens are going online every day, all the time. The website would really do 2 major things for the brand itself. First of all, it was basically an advertising platform for them. While girls would go online to play games, interact with each other, and discover themselves, there would be constant banner ads on the website reminding them of all the cool new things from the brand that they could buy. Second, the website would also act as a marketing research platform for the brand. Girls could essentially directly communicate with the brand through the website, so they could track the success of different products and get that feedback through their own webpage, and thus try to hone what they were creating to better appeal to their audience. Nick would also run an advertising campaign for the website before it was even available to the public.
Look, read, wear, play, right, when. Evermore, forever you, coming soon.
These ads would hint that it was a place where girls could chat, play games, and even win contests.
Ever dreams, ever true, ever cool, ever you, ever power, ever proud. Just say it ever loud.
February of 2004 would bring the release of the second stage of everGirl, music. Pulling a move I've never really personally seen a brand do before, everGirl collaborated with the Swedish girl group Play to represent and make music for the brand. While the name might not sound familiar, Play did have a number of hits in the US through the 2000s, including Us Against the World, and Cinderella. The group had already previously collaborated with both Nickelodeon and Limited too, so their tween audience was primed to see them again. Thus, the group released the single everGirl on their 3rd studio album, Don't Stop the Music.
Hey girls, come and gather round. About to tell you how it's going down.
The single would not only have 1 music video, but 2 for some reason, and also had a behind-the-scenes video that was included on a CD-DVD that was sold exclusively at Limited too.
This is what I'm wearing. I'm wearing Limited 2 clothing, and isn't this too cool?
And around the time of its release, Play also did a live performance on Teen Nick of the song. And that being said, it's not exactly the best song. In fact, I would honestly consider it to be pretty bad. While I'm usually all for the girl pop power anthem, the one major issue actually comes from everGirl. Like the words, everGirl. What does that mean? Play even changes the lyrics in the chorus to being every girl is me, which at least like slightly highlights the communal experience that is girlhood, but everGirl itself just doesn't quite roll off the tongue. And then the band also tried to kind of like play off of this, but it ends up sounding really weird. Like the lyrics, that's the ever way, live it ever day. It's just bad.
And we love that song.
Yeah.
And especially the lyrics. What do you think about the
Yeah,
lyrics?
I think it's a great song because it's about being yourself and,
Yeah.
believing in yourself.
While the song wasn't released until February, it actually was already being used in January in promotions for the website, with some of the lyrics being changed to highlight different features of the website.
Evergirl is ever music, ever books, ever fashion, ever web, ever events.
The lyrics would also include some of the names of the main 4 characters, including Joy, Star, and Sky, but for some reason, don't include Hope, despite that being a very easy name to fit into the lyrics of the song. I feel like the inclusion of all the characters' names was pretty purposeful, especially if they're using it for advertising, so it's pretty odd to leave out one of the 4 characters. However, this is where my theories start to come in, because they do use the word faith, another similar word to hope, which is also often used as a girl's name. So my working theory at this time is Hope was originally named Faith, but they decided to change her name at some point after the lyrics were finished or the vocals were finished recording, possibly due to like religious connotations, but they couldn't re-record the song. But that's just my theory. A game theory.
Ever dreams, ever true, ever cool, ever you, ever power, ever proud. Just say it ever loud.
With the groundwork for the brand set, over 1.4 million monthly visits, and 550,000 registered users on everGirl in June of 2004, they were ready to release the merchandise. That month, Nickelodeon showed off everGirl at the licensing show in New York. The licensing show, or Licensing Expo, as it's now known, is essentially a big convention where companies can come and show off different brands that they're wanting to create merchandise for. There, they can connect with manufacturers and retailers about creating products for their brands. If you don't already know what licensing is, essentially, companies will create a brand, say SpongeBob, and then they'll license that brand out to manufacturers to make official products for it, such as video games, soaps, towels, anything you can think of. If it's legally made, it's been licensed. A New York Post article about the brand reported that the brand integrates a website, pop music, and a customized line of apparel and accessories available at Kohl's, and will try and get tweens to identify with a computer tween that fits their lifestyle, from trendy to sporty. Sort of like the Spice Girls. Now, you may remember me bringing up an Everscope survey that was on the website. everGirl split up its brand into 4 main themes based around the different webisode characters.
What's your Everscope? Are you Joy, Sky, Star, or Hope?
So you would go online, take this everStyle quiz to learn which character was most like you, and then you could go out in store and buy products that were specifically labeled for that character. So there was Joy, the fashion-loving character who was supposed to have cutting-edge, trendy fashions. Sky, the athlete who would have more sporty styles. And then there was Hope, the nerd, and Star, the musician, who both wore unspecified clothing. In July of 2004, the everGirl merchandise was released, with products from 20 different licensees appearing in over 400 Kohl's stores nationwide. According to a Kids Screen article about this, some of the products included bandanas and terry cloth wristbands for Sky and bright costume jewelry for Joy, modular or Italian charms by Casa d'Oro, apparel by Jerry Lee and Briefly Stated, bedding by Franco, and journals by ASL Publishing, along with various cosmetics and home decor. So you got your clothing, you got your makeup, you got your jewelry, basically everything a girl needs. That being said, photos of any of these products are like really hard to find. For some reason, people haven't been archiving stock photos on websites for more than 20 years. Like, honestly rude. The clothing line would also have a number of releases through 2006.
everGirl Fashions from Kohl's. New everGirl Fashions available now.
And you can still find some of it secondhand today, with a lot of it just kind of looking like typical limited to clothing, to be honest. Nickelodeon would also produce 2 commercials for its clothing, which would appear on the channel in 2004 and 5.
Ever dreams, ever true, ever cool, ever you, ever power, ever proud. Just say it ever loud.
In their first article on the brand in January of 2004, Kidscreen would report that at present, there's no plan for a toy or doll line in the initial offering. This, however, was a lie, or Nick was trying to hide the fact that they were planning on releasing a doll line from any competitors, because they had plans. In their end-of-year report from 2003, the toy brand Playmates would report that Nickelodeon will unveil this property in 2004 and aggressively promote the unique, positive everGirl message to girls with TV advertising, promotional, and merchandising campaign, and that Playmates was going to be working alongside Nick to create an innovative, customizable doll and accessory product line to coincide with and capitalize upon Nickelodeon's promotional programs. While I can't can't find an official release date, the toys would be shown off at the 2005 New York Toys Fair in February. The products included were from Playmates Toys, Cardinal Inc., and Giddy-Up LLC, and were made with the intent to help promote positive self-esteem, creative expression, and self-discovery. With a statement from Nickelodeon and Viacom's head of consumer products, Leanne Brodsky, saying, "It's important for girls to be able to express themselves and be creative through play at a young age and carry this into their teen years." One of my biggest heartaches when researching for this video is I got this close to finding photos of these dolls from this toy fair. You see, the thing is, toy fairs are industry-only events, which means it can be sometimes hard to find photos of them, especially of more obscure brands. A lot of the coverage that does exist online has tended to be for more boy-centric brands like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Star Trek, aka toys whose collectors have had a bit more of an online presence. Not a lot of websites that still exist today have captured the more girly or unpopular toys that were there at toy fairs. However, after much digging, I was able to actually find a website with photos from this event. Unfortunately, the photos themselves weren't saved with the Wayback Machine, and I can't get in touch with anyone who is involved with this website. So all we have are some blurry photos for reference. What we do know about the doll line, at least, is that it consisted of 12 dolls and 8 fashion packs. As I brought up before, this line was intended to be innovative and customizable. Instead of any of the dolls being based off of the 4 everGirl characters, they were actually designed to be blank slates, and so girls could essentially create themselves as a doll. Each doll would consist of a pretty basic outfit, with an everGirl t-shirt, corduroy jacket, jeans, tennis shoes, a bag, and stickers that you could use to customize your doll. As the packaging advertises, the goal was to get a doll that looked just like you, then take your everStyle quiz, either by going online or by rotating this disc on the front of the box and learning about all of the different Everscope styles. Then you would buy the fashion pack that matches your everStyle for your doll to wear. Here's a list of all of the dolls and the names they were listed under on the Nickelodeon website that I've been able to find. African American doll, Asian doll, blonde and brown doll, blonde and green doll, probably also blonde and blue-eyed doll, brunette and brown doll, brunette and blue doll, brunette and green doll, Hispanic doll, redhead doll, strawberry blonde and green doll, as well as 2 fashion packs for each everstyle. While I would say the idea of making a doll based around yourself is unique, I couldn't help but immediately be reminded of the American Girl Just Like You dolls, which also allows you to pick from a really wide range of doll appearances and then just select whichever outfit packs you want for your doll to represent you, essentially. However, I didn't realize that the Just Like You dolls weren't called that. Originally, they were called the American Girl of Today dolls. And instead of being branded and sold as like you as a doll, they were actually created to be just modern counterparts to American Girl's historic dolls. The name wouldn't be changed to Just Like You until 2006, which did also include a shift in marketing towards the dolls essentially being sold as like avatars for kids. So in a way, one could argue that everGirl set the stage for Just Like You dolls. I actually was able to get in touch with someone who had worked on the everGirl doll line, Elena Velasquez, who I reached out to on Instagram. Elena confirmed that the dolls were created with the intent of being really relatable to kids' goals and aspirations. The dolls were intended to look more youthful or teen-like than your typical Barbie. And this makes sense. When introducing everGirl to the public in 2004, Leanne Brodsky commented that the intent of everGirl was to help tweens cope with self-esteem issues and work towards their personal aspirations, and that there did seem to be a void in properties and brands that addressed those issues. So the brand was really intentionally creating its characters and its media that look like real girls. There are aspirational aspects to their life, but their goals are potentially attainable. It's not a fairy tale world. And I feel like the doll line does pretty clearly align with that. During this time period, fashion dolls were leaning in the opposite direction, with a focus on the adult styles of Bratz, Barbie California Girls and Fashion Fever, and My Scene ruling the roost. everGirl maintained its goal of having a more realistic doll, even advertising the doll's realistic body shape on the box. Apparently, it was the executive team working on the doll line that really pushed to having the dolls wearing essentially basic outfits and then having the fashion packs to customize them. However, as Elena noted in our conversation, it does make the dolls look sort of generic, and it removes a lot of the variety and visual interest from the dolls. This would actually end up being an issue for sales. You see, another thing that Elena told me about is in the world of toys, shelf space is a huge issue. Like literal space on shelves in stores. Newer brands have a harder time getting spots on stores' shelves, who would often rather dedicate that spot to a brand that they know is going to sell well. And so having these 12 different dolls doesn't really work if you only have 2 facing spots, or 2 spots on the shelf that are facing the customer. Customers wouldn't be able to see all of the options, thus losing that first glance appeal of seeing a doll that looks just like you. If the dolls on display don't happen to be the ones that look like you, it doesn't really work. And adding on to that, Elena also noticed that even though 12 dolls were produced, only about 6 of them might have ended up on store shelves. The doll line would only consist of this first release, with the dolls simply not selling well in what is the extremely competitive fashion doll space. As Elena described it to me, you usually get one shot to make it work. If a line is not making profit, it'll get dropped in the first season, which is unfortunate because so much work gets put behind these new brands. I would have really loved to have seen more from the everGirl doll line. Being a girl who loved her Just Like Me American Girl dolls, I can completely see the appeal in having a way more accessible and affordable option. In terms of other toys produced for everGirl, there were also a number of different craft sets, like the scrapbooking set that was on Nickelodeon's shop at one point, and I've also found evidence of electronics, such as cameras being produced and sold, though I can't find a lot of photos of these. And speaking of things that I can't find evidence of, Heads Up Creative lists a Toys R Us everGirl doll commercial as one of the things that they created when working with Nickelodeon on their website. However, I can't find any evidence of this existing anywhere. Photos, video, nothing. Also, ignore the weird censoring on this clip. That's a spoiler for later.
Ever dreams, ever true, ever cool, ever you, ever power, ever proud. Just say it ever loud.
In May of 2005, the brand would host what is really the bread and butter of the Nickelodeon channel, a sweepstakes.
everGirl brings you the Ever Ultimate Friendship Trip Sweepstakes.
The Ever Friendship Sweepstakes had girls enter by either mail or on the everGirl website, with the only requirement being that they had to write about what made their friendship special.
Hey, you have a best friend, right?
Then 4 girls would be selected to go on a trip to New York.
Have a simply spectacular lunch with an ever-cool secret celeb.
And I can say with some confidence that this trip actually happened because I was able to find the website of a designer who worked on decorating the hotel room for the winners. So you can see some of these photos here. She made it cutesy everGirl themed. She went from drab to fab, you may say. Day to night. Never girl to everGirl. Then, in August of 2005, everGirl would set its sights on something bigger than just giving out free stuff to fans of the brand. everGirl wanted talent. In 2005, things weren't going super well in the pop world of play. The group's 3rd album, which included the everGirl single, kind of bombed. This is possibly due to 2 factors. The first one is one of the original members of Play actually ended up leaving the group right before this album due to her wanting to focus more on school.
We want to introduce our new member, Janet. Welcome into the group.
Thank you.
So there was a bit of a different group dynamic. And 2, the group was trying to switch their audience from being teenagers and young adults to tweens, which means their lyrics were a little bit more childish and they lost some of that audience that they had already built in the US. So after a couple more unsuccessful releases, the group essentially disbanded by April of 2005. Because of that, everGirl decided that they wanted to create their own ever band and held the BeHeard contest. As reported by Keep Media, the BeHeard contest was a casting call and music tour, which visited different Paramount parks, aka theme parks that I had no clue existed until I did this research. From August 12th until September 15th, everGirl visited Richmond, Cincinnati, Toronto, and Charlotte, allowing about 50 tween girls to audition at each stop. Girls could also audition online through the everGirl website. While the touring contest was almost exclusively for musical talents, girls could enter online in different categories, like creating the band logo, creating the CD cover, writing lyrics, and even, thank God, coming up with a better name for the band than Everband. Like, that was seriously the plan, Everband. I'm not making a joke. The contest would allow for online voting, for girls to vote for each other and give them a chance to be heard, with of course the everGirl reps and music label having the final say. The tour also consisted of a concert, which included performances by the Little Woman Band, I'm gonna say this name wrong, Tania, as well as a little group called the Jonas Brothers. This was actually one of the first tours that the Jonas Brothers would go on, which is kind of funky considering it's affiliated with Nickelodeon, and basically after this tour, they would pretty much exclusively work with Disney. And I have actually been able to find one photo from these events, so I know that they really happened, and I only found it because it was on a Nick Jonas fan page, so shout out to the fangirls of the world for archiving information. And really the only reason I can tell this is from this event is because there's the everGirl logo right there, so it was real. The contest was going to have 7 grand prize winners, and the prize for those winners was to basically become a spokesperson for the band. They would feature in commercials, make in-store appearances, and create the 2006 everGirl single. The only person I can find evidence of having won this contest is an artist named Gabriella Hauer, who had also won a number of different youth singing talent contests in her childhood. I can't find anyone else, so if you won the everGirl BeHeard contest, let me know. I would love to know more.
Ever dreams, ever true, ever cool, ever you, ever power, ever proud. Just say it ever loud.
With the holiday season approaching, it was time to release what would end up being the final stage of the everGirl brand, the video game, which was originally the only thing this video is going to be about. If only life was so ever simple. The everGirl games for PC and Game Boy Advance were published by THQ on October 4th, 2005. In a statement about the release, John Ardell with THQ said, "The games will be a wonderful outlet for girls with a passion for self-discovery and creative expression." And with Steve Youngwood from Nickelodeon adding, "The everGirl brand allows young women to discover their character like never before. We're thrilled to be partnering with THQ to give fans of the property an interactive opportunity to express their unique personalities." Does it feel a little weird that the people representing the brand at this point aren't men? Yes, but I'm sure that's nothing to worry about. The PC version of the game was created by Wanaco Games, a development studio headquartered in Chile, which was actually the first and largest South American game development studio at the time. The Game Boy Advance version was created by Artificial Mind and Movement, a game studio in Montreal. For the longest time, I thought they were actually both created by the same developer, which, once we get into the games, you'll understand that that's actually super confusing, but it turns out that in 2008, Artificial Mind and Movement actually bought Wanaco Studios. So some websites will actually list Artificial Mind and Movement as the developer for both versions of the game, even though they were technically developed by 2 separate studios. They just eventually became the same studio. And while Artificial Mind and Movement might not sound that familiar to you, the company would rename itself in 2010 to something that might be a little bit more familiar: Behavior Interactive. Which means I can technically argue that everGirl belongs in the Dead by Daylight universe. Kind of. The game was advertised for sure on the everGirl website. In terms of anywhere else, I'm not sure. I can only find one print advertisement for the game, which was in a Nickelodeon magazine, and it's tiny. It's less than a fourth of the page. It says, "Be whatever girl you want to be. Choose your adventure based on your own personality. Play sports, go shopping, design fashion, or become an artist. It's all up to you." No other details. No graphics from the game, just the everGirl logo. I'm sure this is gonna sell so well. My original plan for this video again was just to cover the PC version of the game, which goes to show how off the rails this video has gone for me. I got my copy of everGirl with a lot of other games for $4 from an online estate sale. And I wasn't even trying to buy everGirl specifically, I actually wanted some of the FMV games that were in the lot so I could give them to my friend Snuggly. But I was kind of excited still because I'd seen everGirl around and always been really curious about what it was. I knew nothing about it. The cover of the game again gives you no details about what it is, but something kind of like itched my brain. I think maybe I recognized the logo. For some reason, I definitely thought it was like an MMO, which it certainly isn't, but that was the first thing I thought when I found it. But enough of my background with it, let's get into the everGame. Our game opens with us creating our character. Simple, classic, laying the groundwork for girlies like me who would spend hours creating our Elden Ring and Baldur's Gate 3 characters. And then we enter into
the quiz of your life, the show that can change your life forever. Now let's begin, and here is a simple question. What do you want to do with your life? So many possibilities and so little time. Hurry up, 3 seconds left. Come on, it's almost over. 2, 1.
the quiz of your life. Honestly, what a reasonable nightmare to have. The game takes place right before your summer break from school, with you, the main character, having to decide on who you want to be as a person. Or really, the plot is more that, you don't have clear goals in life and you feel like your friends are really passionate, so you spend time doing stuff with your friends to figure out what you really care about. The game has 5 chapters, with the first 4 having a pretty consistent structure. A friend will reach out to you about helping with their interest, you'll do 4 mini-games, buy something, and then do one of those mini-games again as a final challenge, and you've completed the level. So our first friend, Ashley, invites us to help out with a big soccer game that's coming up. We get to select our outfit and hair for the day and head out to the soccer field. The game uses point-and-click movement to explore the different locations, and let me say, they are pretty. They're nice 3D environments with lots of different details that you can look at, there are different characters you can talk to, and even different mini-games in a lot of the areas that you can play. The map itself is also pretty big, so moving around feels kind of time-consuming, but you can fast travel using the map once you've unlocked a location by visiting it. So we find our friend Ashley, and to help her out, she has us train with the soccer team, act as a TV broadcaster, be a cheerleader, and create flipboards. And then whichever one of those you like the most, you can pick from to do your final challenge. I found almost all of these games to be weirdly hard. Maybe it's just me, but I was struggling with a lot of them, especially the soccer one. It took me forever to do. I ended up doing the cheerleading minigame again, just because it's a rhythm game, and that's typically something that I can handle pretty well. I've played a lot of Love Live School Idol, but this song, it sure is a song. Through the game, a series of different question bubbles will pop up asking you what are very magazine personality quiz-esque questions. And while I thought these would just be kind of little fun questions through the game that would give me my Everscope at the end of it, it turns out. So I think this is another game that it changes depending on the answers you give, so kind of like Until Dawn. So once you do finish all of the mini games, you pick your final task you want to do, and then bam, you have to go shopping. I love that in the ad for the game, it kind of made it sound like everything is optional. But no, if you want to progress, you have to go to the mall, you have to spend money, in my case, on a boombox, which I'm assuming is not very cheap. However, thankfully, money also just doesn't matter. You don't really have money that you have to care about. You have your parents' credit card, apparently. So all you have to do is walk to the mall, talk to the person at the appropriate store for whatever you're buying, get it, and then go back to the school for the final performance. With the sport chapter complete, we're ready to move on to the next chapter, theater. So you go meet your friend Jessica in the auditorium, where they're putting on a production of Romeo and Juliet. And if you think Jessica looks anything like Star, well, I'm sure that's just a weird coincidence. Speaking of weird coincidences, the school that you go to in the game is Everview, or the girls' school in the everGirl universe. And as far as I can tell, there aren't any guys in the game, at least any that you can interact with. which means this game possibly accidentally falls into the trope of an all-girl school doing a performance of Romeo and Juliet, which is kind of popular in anime. Like, I was thinking of K-On! The entire time, but we're getting off topic. So we help set up the performance, buy a headset, comfort an actress with stage fright, and then I do my final challenge, which is direct the play. The next day, our friend Jordan needs our help in the library. Jordan is a bookworm who's in charge of the school magazine, wears a sweater covered with the letter H, but isn't Hope. Let it be known. She has us take photos for the magazine, design the cover, get articles, and deliver it. All of which, again, were either time-consuming or weirdly hard. We then go buy a cell phone, with what money, I don't know, and I do my final job as the paper's editor. Our final main chapter has us meet up with Megan, no relation to Joy, to help her plan the end of year party. All of these mini games were bad. I decide that I am going to DJ, because again, it's a rhythm game, so I have to go buy turntables. I play really good Brad Summer music, and we make the front page of the news. Reaching what I thought was the end of the game, it then assigns me my Everscope. Now everyone, I want you to think of which you think represents me the best. I like making videos, playing video games, I love creating music, I'm pretty happy to speak in public and on a stage, and I've always really enjoyed fashion and makeup. So keeping all of that information in mind, the game assigned Sky to me. Or the lightning bolt. I don't know if the scope is the character's name or just their icon. I've never quite figured that part out. But that's such an interesting choice, considering, again, I've never been a very, sporty person. I also hated the sports mini games in this game, but I think the determining factor is I did a lot of things that were leadership focused, and for some reason the Sky character is both sporty as well as a leader. So, that's my true self. But with that, I figured it was time to retire from my evergaming. But I was wrong. You see, there's another level. And through the entire game, they make all of these references to a summer camp or going to camp. I thought this would just be a little end credit scene, but no, it turns out it is a whole other level where you go to camp. And at first, I was like, oh yay, because I was a camp kid. I love summer camp. But then I was like, oh no. Because it turns out they sent me to the Iron Girl contest camp, and I had to compete in all of the mini games that I already hated from earlier in the game. This feels like it would have been the ultimate nightmare scenario for me as a kid. My parents were trying everything they could to stop me from drawing anime cat girls by sending me to my personal hell. And for some reason, I thought this was just how the game was and how it ended no matter what. We all went to the Iron Girl contest, but it turns out no. Depending on which Everscope you get, you go to a different camp. So for some reason, because in the Ever universe, being a leader means you have to like sports, I'm stuck here instead of at band camp where I belong. This game did a better job of psychologically profiling me to create a nightmare than Silent Hill Shattered Memories ever could. Is he just gonna say I need to get laid?
I'm not getting enough.
What? I am a middle-aged man who got in a car crash, who's trying to find his daughter, and the therapist is like, you need to have sex. Now, because I originally thought the games were produced by the same company, I wasn't really planning on playing the Game Boy Advance game because I figured it would be pretty well the exact same. But then I got super sick and had a lot of free time in an emulator on my phone, so I figured, oh, I might as well play it. And it turns out they are very different games. In the Game Boy Advance game, you're told that your aunt has purchased an old theater, and you and your housemates in the Ever House spend the game working together to transform said theater into a cafe. The Ever House is kind of like a boarding house where it's just a group of tweens that all live together with no adults, which I would have loved as a kid, but as an adult, I'm like, where's the supervision? In the game, you do a number of missions with your friends/housemates, Taryn, Stephanie, Chloe, and Karen. I always forget Karen. So this usually includes just like finding them around town and then getting or delivering items for them. The game is pretty adorable graphics-wise, and each of the levels also features a little mini game like this roller skating one or these rhythm ones. The plot itself is pretty bare bones. Basically, you'll do a task for a friend that's for the cafe, you'll go in and decorate the cafes, that chapter will end, rinse and repeat. You go through and make all of these improvements to this cafe, and then like 10 chapters in, your aunt calls you and is like, actually, I'm selling the cafe. And despite that, you continue working on the cafe until it opens. And then once it opens, you do a really impressive dance number. And only then does your aunt decide that she's going to keep the cafe. I wish I was making this up, but the dance number really sold it. The game does also have a lot of customization options. You can decorate your entire bedroom, adding in different pets, accessories, and furniture. You can change the color of your hair and full outfit, as well as you can pretty thoroughly customize all of the cafe. The different levels also will have these little like side quests that you can do, except I wasn't able to get them to successfully work for some reason. Like there was one where I was supposed to catch butterflies and I couldn't figure out how to use my net. And then one of the characters later, like, referenced the fact that I had the net, and I was like, I hope I don't have to use it. I don't know how. All in all, the game took me less than 2 hours to complete, which, like, isn't the worst, but I usually like my Game Boy Advance games to be a little longer. As a kid, I probably could have played for a lot longer, because I probably would have, like, customized every little detail and gotten a bunch of different pets and done every little thing, but I was just mostly trying to get through the plot, which was cafe time. I can only find one published review for the game, which comes from Girl Gamer, an early 2000s girl gaming website. They also highlight that both of the games are on the shorter end, but also agree that they're cute, colorful, and user-friendly. For the PC version of the game, they also pointed out the fact that every task presented also offers a concrete and somewhat educational objective, and that the game emphasizes teamwork and helping out your friends, which I think also follows the overall goal of the brand everGirl pretty well. And I agree, though they're kind of unrealistic in some ways, the games really do focus on kind of like real life problems girls would have and working together with your friends to solve them. I also want to note, for some reason, this is such a small thing, but Twitch's IGDB page lists both the PC version and GBA version as having 2 different release dates, which isn't accurate. It says the PC version came out in 2004, which just isn't true. I don't know why it says that, and it also, of course, says that both of them were developed by Artificial Minded Movement, which is wrong. And also that brand doesn't exist anymore. So it's like I can't even excuse it in like, oh, you know, they're just gonna, it's like you're just wrong. Me playing everGirl, you're just wrong. So while I can't really gauge how well the game sold based off of numbers or anything, we can assume that it probably did pretty bad, considering I can hardly find any official reviews for it, basically can't find any advertising for it, so we can comfortably assume this wasn't selling well. And I don't necessarily blame anyone for not wanting to buy the game. The cover and the box art give you no information about what the game is. No graphics. Like, when you look at this, you have no clue what to expect. And even if you are a fan of the everGirl brand, it doesn't really lean into the brand. Like, for example, it's not using any of the actual characters' names in the game, even though the character models are definitely just supposed to be the main 4 girls. I have no clue what happened with that. It is so weird, and I think it might go to show that by the time this game came out, not a ton of love was being put into this brand. Now, this might come as a surprise, but there actually was a third everGirl game. Sometime in 2005-2006, the everGirl everGems mobile game was released. This was basically Bejeweled, but used the everGirl's character logos as the jewels. The game was developed by Super Happy Fun and was part of a mobile branding push that everGirl did, which also included wallpaper, mono, and poly polyphonic ringtones, and a WAP destination site, which I'm assuming is like a cell phone website. And it looks like all of those might have been produced by a company called Sorit. I can't find any of them. They are lost to time.
Ever dreams, ever true, ever cool, ever you, ever power, ever proud. Just say it ever loud.
In this section, I'm going to try and quickly cover all of the tidbits of everGirl lore, merch, and other bits of branding that I found hints about, but not much more. So first small thing is a document from the June 2005 licensing show lists everGirl as a brand that's going to be making novelty food products like fruit snacks. Never saw anything come of that, but I'm curious about what foods exist in the Ever universe. Secondly, we have everVIP. When digging through the website using the Wayback Machine, I found this banner ad advertising the everVIP Club. This specific link was saved in December of 2005, and I can't find any other information about it or what VIP on the website could have entailed. So very curious about what it meant to be an Ever VIP. Third is a book. In some editions of Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul, Deborah Reber is credited as having worked on a tween fiction novel, everGirl, based on the new property being launched by Nickelodeon. Deborah's work with everGirl would be cited in another Chicken Soup book she worked on as well, and I actually was able to reach out to her about it. When I asked her, she said that I wrote a fiction book based on the everGirl characters. It was a middle grade novel. It was part of the brand's package and was building out a story for the everGirl characters to bring them to life. But no, I don't believe it was ever published. That's really all I remember. And lastly, a movie. You might remember my odd censorship of a screenshot about ads that were created for everGirl by the company Heads Up Creative, and well, the reason for that is because it also lists everGirl the movie, an animated feature film, as one of the things that they created. The executive director for Heads Up Creative, Michelle Band, also wrote that she oversaw creative for Nickelodeon's animated feature film everGirl in her About Us section. She's also credited as directing the music videos for Play's everGirl. So it definitely seems like she was involved with the brand. But this means two possible things for me. The first is perhaps this movie is actually what ended up turning into the webisodes. Like they cut down the movie into shorter segments that they then put on the website. Or our other option is that we supposedly have a completely lost everGirl movie that for some reason this company is still listing on their website even though it never saw the light of day. In this segment, I also want to highlight one mistake I see online all the time. People often say that they were planning a television show for everGirl. I can't actually find anywhere officially published that references this plan. It's actually pretty consistently reiterated that the plan is not to have a TV show, just the online webisodes. So I'm not sure where this piece of information came from that's been shared in other videos that I've seen or on web pages, but as far as I can tell in my hours of research, there never was a plan to make an everGirl TV show. Just the web series and possibly this movie.
Ever dreams, ever true, ever cool, ever you, ever power, ever proud. Just say it ever loud.
May of 2006. There's a shift in the atmosphere. The everGirl website starts redirecting people to a page that says that the website is currently getting a makeover and to click back later. Little did the users of everGirl know that click would never come. Merchandise ceased production, with any remaining stock going on sale never to be replaced. And by 2008, the web page for everGirl started redirecting users to Nick's website. The era of everGirl was ever over. So what happened? I can't find any one specific reason that led to the end of the brand, but I have found a number of key factors I've conveniently organized into a numbered list for you. First, oversaturation. everGirl was not alone in their attempt to catch the eye of the tween market. There were a lot of brands doing very similar things at the same time, and I don't think everGirl was doing quite enough to catch the eye of young people. For a brand that was planning to be heavily advertised, I can't find any ads that highlight the dolls, the electronics, any accessories that they sold, or even really showing what the website itself looked like. And these ads were playing on Nickelodeon alongside ads from Barbie, Barbie, Bratz, Limited 2, and oftentimes for products that were really in direct competition with everGirl. And I've watched almost every recording I can of commercial breaks on Nickelodeon from 2004 to 2006, and I can say with some confidence that there wasn't a lot of everGirl advertised on there. So not only was it a pretty saturated market anyways, with everGirl having to compete with other tween lines at stores, Limited 2, celebrity lines like Hilary Duff's and the Olsen twins, but Nickelodeon was also just not doing a super great job of advertising their own products, especially considering that they were running ads for their competitors on the channel as well. And this also goes for things like Nick magazines. Again, I could only find everGirl mentioned once in the one small ad for the game. The second factor that may have affected things is that girls don't really want realism. They want high fantasy. I want to be in the woods punching bears. So a lot of the everGirl brand was built around wanting to be relatable and realistic. The only issue is girls at this age don't necessarily want realism. One study on the culture of girlhood by Claudia Mitchell and Jacqueline Reed Walsh notes the power of unrealistic dolls like Bratz and Barbie in that because the dolls are obviously caricatures or cartoons, they could not be constructed as models for children to imitate. This non-modeling aspect could lend to their play appeal. These dolls as a type could indicate a move of material tween culture into the parody mode of burlesque, from what was formerly a representational form that has been largely constructed as realistic. So these researchers were finding that there was an appeal in tweens to basically playing out a parody of being a teen or adult. Growing up can be kind of scary, but leaning into the glamour, fashion, drama, or aesthetics over the substance of it allows for a more manageable way to handle the emotions that come with growing up. A newsletter from 2008 highlights some of these ideas around marketing to tweens. In it, they note that teens are rooted in reality. Kids love fantasy. For tweens, a fantasy-reality combination is the most appealing. Think of tween-oriented shows such as High School Musical, The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and Bindi the Jungle Girl. The newsletter also highlights that in 2008, the most popular website for tweens to visit at the time was Webkinz, saying, better yet, look at what the #1 tween site, Webkinz.com, has done by combining their plush animal dolls with their website. Talk about interactivity. Webkinz.com is the holy grail of where reality and fantasy merge in the tween mindset. everGirl might have been trying to be a bit too real for what tweens really wanted. The third factor is the Viacom split. Getting into the more nitty-gritty details as to why I think everGirl disappeared, we have the Viacom split. In 2005, Viacom announced that it would be splitting into two companies, Viacom and CBS Corporation. Viacom was a huge company, so the split was for a number of investment, culture, and management reasons that I really can't get into fully in an eloquent or easily understandable way. But to put it as simply as I can, the company split at the end of 2005, with Nickelodeon and thus everGirl staying a part of Viacom. While apparently Viacom thought this would be a really good idea, by July of 2006, their stock was dropping. An article from the New York Times reported that this was due to the youth-oriented networks, which had long been dominant, increasingly being challenged. And the company has been faulted for not being aggressive enough in making internet acquisitions, which is kind of interesting. I'm wondering what exactly they mean by internet acquisitions, because Viacom had actually acquired a little tiny, not so super well-known internet website called Neopets in 2005. There's even a saved everGirl link on the Wayback Machine, which makes it look like they had some sort of collaboration at some point, which was kind of fun. So like, what were they trying to do? I'm not sure, but at the end of the day, the split caused Viacom to struggle a lot financially. Factor number 4. FCC violations. Part of what might have caused some issues for Viacom and everGirl's online presence was the FCC. The Federal Communications Commission has a lot of rules, especially ones dedicated to protecting children, which at times have been less helpful for Viacom. For example, in 2004, Viacom had to pay over $1 million to the FCC for violations around advertisements on the Nickelodeon channel. This was partly due to them playing more ad content within an hour of broadcasting than was allowed, but also because companies are not allowed to play advertisements for toys or products that are based off of the show that's playing during that ad block. So, for example, during an episode of SpongeBob, they're not allowed to advertise SpongeBob toys because the FCC argues that basically turns the entire episode into a giant ad. And while that technically wouldn't be an issue for everGirl specifically, what could be an issue is the FCC's rules about advertising website links during broadcasting. In 2004, the FCC declared that website links could only be displayed during programming if 1. The website offers substantial amounts of bona fide program-related or other non-commercial content. 2. The website is not primarily intended for commercial purposes, including either e-commerce or advertising. 3. The website's homepage and other menu pages are clearly labeled to distinguish the non-commercial from the commercial sections. And 4. The page of the website to which viewers are directed by the website address is not used for e-commerce, advertising, or other commercial purposes. Example contains no links labeled store and no links to another page with commercial material. So due to the everGirl website essentially being a big ad for the brand, Nickelodeon wouldn't be allowed to display the URL to the website outside of paid commercial time. And like we said earlier, Nickelodeon has to follow rules about how much paid commercial time can be shown per hour of broadcasting, which means they would have to pick between playing ads from their competitors who were paying them for that airtime or playing ads from their own brand, which I don't know if they would have been paid, and if so, it's like the company paying itself, which is not the most profitable situation. The fifth reason why I think everGirl ended up not continuing on is simply that it wasn't leaning into itself enough. I bring this up earlier, but I think everGirl as a brand just didn't lean into its own brand quite enough. It had all of these concepts and some moving parts that would lean on the main characters and some other parts that just rejected them and didn't want to use them. Like they didn't want to feature the main characters' names in the games despite basically using the characters in the games. So it seems weird that they did create all of this narrative content around them with the website and supposed novel and maybe movie, but they just didn't do more with those characters. I think part of that comes into the sort of fear that they might have had about making it too much of a fantasy. They wanted it to feel real, so they didn't want the focus to be on the characters, but on the people using the website and the products themselves. But in my opinion, Nickelodeon's products sell well because of the characters that they create. And I know that that probably felt at odds to the creators with creating a brand that was all about celebrating the diversity of girlhood and celebrating all girls. But if you think about it, the most successful part of the brand was its website, and that was one of the few places that really did lean into using these characters. So at the end of the day, I guess I'm kind of arguing that Nickelodeon didn't know how to make everGirl work or be profitable. They were throwing a lot of spaghetti at the wall, trying to get their footing. As well, the FCC regulations probably kind of threw a wrench in their plans as to how they wanted to drive traffic to the website. And once Viacom was struggling financially, it probably just seemed like the right cost to cut. The video game hadn't done well, we can't say for sure how well the clothing was selling, the doll line wasn't super successful, so all they really had left was the website. And even though it was getting a lot of traffic, running a website with that sort of online traffic that isn't really making back that profit isn't cheap. And there were probably simply too many competitor products for the advertising on the website to really be effective. As well, because there are so many unknowns around the end of the brand, it is easy to make some unflattering assumptions about perhaps website moderation. However, I couldn't find any information online that would link to any troubling content that took place with messages or a messaging board. I do believe they did have message boards on there or ways that users could communicate privately with each other. So it's possible that some less great things went down, but I will say Nickelodeon did win an award for child safety with their web pages in the past. So I'm kind of hoping that that wasn't where any of the issues lied, they weren't trying to cover up any less than ideal behavior. But I will say that's definitely another thing I considered with the kind of mysterious end of the web page.
Ever dreams, ever true, ever cool, ever you, ever power, ever proud. Just say it ever loud.
So while we don't know exactly why everGirl ended, what I do know is we have a lot of lost media from it. With the death of Flash in 2020, the everGirl website really became inaccessible. Even while using Flash emulators like Ruffle or trying to use older versions of web browsers that still have Flash on them, I found that I was consistently redirected to a Get Flash webpage when using the web archive to look at pages. Which means an immense amount of content from the website is gone forever. Character bios, mini games, a newsletter, whatever VIP was, and the webisodes. Like, talk about lost media, I can't even find a list of all the webisodes that existed, and the only reason I know for sure that they did exist is because they were in publications about the site. I will say, there is a website out there with a fake list of names. Don't fall for that, it's completely fan-made. I don't understand why people make stuff like that, but they did. So that's not the real webisode list. Not only are we missing these animated webisodes, but there's other videos as well that were hosted on the website. The Wayback Machine actually has a list of every URL it had captured for everGirl. And while we can't access most of them, we can get a little bit of information about what was included on them, such as there were videos with Emma Roberts, Brie Larson, and the musicians from the BeHeard tour concerts. And of course, not only is there the webisodes, but there's also a possible full movie that we'll never have access to, a commercial for the doll line, or at least like advertisements for the doll line, as well as the results from the BeHeard contest, if they ever made any music or any content with the contestants that won. I have attempted to reach out to a vast number of people who are connected to the brand in one way or the other, and I really only heard back from the two people that I already referenced in this video. It's likely that we won't ever have access to the webisodes or be able to see what the website looked like unless somebody out there happens to have screen recordings of them, which, like, that would be really cool. Send me them. It seems like Nick and Viacom haven't exactly cared to archive this history, which means that all we're really left with is a Wikipedia article stub, 2 really unpopular games, and a pop song which somebody to this day still makes celebrity fan edit slideshows to on YouTube. Shout out to them. And so that's everGirl. Thank you all so much for joining me today for this video. Oh my goodness, in case it's not obvious, this was my rabbit hole essentially for the last 3 months. Thank you so much to anyone in my life who's been around me and has had to hear me talk about this brand or wear my everGirl shirt out in public. I custom made shirts for this. I just want to highlight the Internet Archive is such an important research, not just to people like me who enjoy making more silly goofy things like this, but it's a way to archive information and have it accessible to way more people than would be otherwise. So I just want to say, if you have any loose change available, please consider donating to them. Time and time again, they have been an incredible resource for my research and have helped me discover all sorts of little tidbits. So I just really appreciate them, and I want to make sure all of you know how important of a resource they are to me and to thousands of other people and institutions. So please consider supporting the Internet Archive. Also, in general, support the archiving of content, especially internet content. As I've said multiple times, stuff actually isn't forever on the internet, and we're losing pieces of art and information all of the time. The more resources we have available in the world, the better. Also, if you have any memories or information about everGirl, please share it in the comments down below. I know that this isn't it. There are tons of people who have memories and experiences, possibly merchandise out there that I haven't been able to find. So if you're one of those people, please share your comments down below. I would love to know more about this brand, your personal experiences with it, or anything that you know about it. All right, with that, I think I'm ready to end the video. Thank you so much for sitting through this history of everGirl. Let us all be everGirls. If you'd like to see my sources, I have those linked along with my script in the description. So please feel free to check those out. There's a lot of articles, as well as I'll include my timeline of the everGirl brand that I used to help me research this video. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye!